Hey there, it's Phil with a random thought. I've been listening to a lot of Candace Owens lately, somebody that I really didn't appreciate for a very long time, mostly because of her views on the Israeli Palestinian conflict. But then she got into this whole thing with Macron and his wife. Is his wife really a woman? Was she born a man? Kind of weird. And it got me to thinking about why the right is obsessed or feels obsessed with these things about what somebody's true gender. Like there's that whole thing with Michelle Obama, and Obama, and whether he's gay or not, some letters that apparently he wrote back in his college days. And it's weird. And whenever I get into any political debate, and I like political debates because I like to have that exchange, I never get into that because I think that's just whatever. Like that has nothing to do with policy or, what Obama did as president. Like argue that, don't argue whether he's gay or not. So, but my wheels started turning, because this apparently has become big, at least in the Candace world, because they're suing her over it, because she's making these accusations that Macron's wife was really born a man. And I said, what's going on here? And what I like to do, it's like a thought experiment for myself, is I really like to see what are the motives behind, an opinion that I really disagree with. And I like that for a few reasons. One, you realize that these are just bits of information. Like nobody's born a conservative, nobody's born a liberal, nobody's even born a Nazi or jihadist, whatever. Get as extreme as you want to get with it. Like this is information that's just given to somebody. So that kind of helps me detach myself from the person if I do get into a debate. I think that's healthy. Like I'm debating that ideology and not the person behind it because that person wasn't born that ideology that was fed to them. So I think it's cool to understand what is the ideology and also what is the motive behind it, because when you get a motive, then you start to understand the reasoning behind the thought process, which can help you kind of just get where somebody's coming from, even if you completely disagree with it. And I mean that to the extreme. Like, what are the motives of a racist being a racist? Once you get that, it, at least for me, it helps free me from that energy and kind of like combat things that I'm not into in more I don't know, calm ways, that don't stress me out as much. I think that's healthy if you're into politics and social stuff like I am. Anyway, getting back to the original point is I decided to think about why is it that conservatives hammer that so much, and it ends up backfiring, right? Because a lot of times it's conservatives that are caught with like these young men in like massage parlors. I am not gay. I have never been gay. If anybody's old enough, they'll get that reference. So I just thought about it and thought about it, and the conclusion I came to, and correct me if I'm wrong, or just say what you want in the comments. Just be respectful as always. Is that especially after the Tea Party, and you see, really, Obama, I think, was the first one where they really hit this. They never did it with earlier presidents or political figures as much. They just blocked them, like if they were openly gay and stuff like that, right? Um, is that the image that the left has sold to the public is one of truthfulness and be your truth and be real, and we understand you, we're part of the people, and yes we can, that whole thing. It's like a certain messaging that they give out about realness, and constantly accusing the right of just being for the billionaires and they're not for the real people and blah 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 blah. We get the narratives. It's a lot of narrative politics these days more than policy politics. But so I think once the Tea Party started moving, which is a little bit different than just regular old Republican, you started to get these people that are questioning this narrative politics. And so that became an issue for them. It's like, if this guy's selling realness, why is he actually in the closet homosexual? And if Michelle Obama's selling realness, why, you know, isn't she telling us that really she's a transgender woman? Guys, I think it's silly. Like, for real, for real. But it kind of clicked for me with that. I may research it a little bit more, so I may come back with a different answer. But in my head, that's what makes sense is that you're just showing, like, you're kind of tearing the mask off and showing, look, these people pretend to be all happy and, like Kamala, I don't want to mispronounce her name, uh, Harris with joy, 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 until it wasn't joy, until it was, he's a fascist, It was like really like this 180. But it's just this image, and Kamala, she could speak in all of a sudden she's speaking in like a black accent, and all of a sudden, she wasn't that Indian that more anymore, I don't want to rehash all that, but just we get a sense of what's going on, right? There's a whole image, and then this is what it's really like. And I think the certain parts of the right latched onto that, and that grew into the Tea Party, which eventually grew into MAGA, which is different than the Republicans. Um, and it has its faults, certainly. The MAGA movement has its faults. But one thing that I do appreciate is that it, wrong or right, it kind of pushed to like tear away like that fakeness. I can't agree with the methods. uh, but I certainly agree with the intention, which is like, guys, if you're really saying that you speak for the people and that you're for the people, then be 100% real with us. And I think, again, not to rehash things that have been debated and talked about forever. The Trump movement comes from that, where it's like, here's a guy that'll say anything. He doesn't care. Wrong or right. Again, not debating that, just reality of what happened. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So I won't laugh as hard, when I see somebody, bringing that up again and be like, ugh, because I get where it's coming from. I disagree with it. Like, I would never debate. I would never spend a lot of time debating that topic. When I listen to those Candace videos about that, for me, I just like the conspiracy aspect of it. It's like listening to like Bigfoot encounters. So I like that part of it. I'm not listening to it like, oh my God, she's really a man. It's more like, what the hell? Like I'm a fan of the X Files. I'm a fan of Art Bell. For me, like that's like talking about UFOs. So I listen to it on that level, and it's interesting, and very well researched, I guess. Um, so that's my thoughts on that. And have a good time, y'all, doing it, whatever it is you're doing out there in the world.